Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to Good for the Soul, episode number 10. In this episode, I sat down with Professor Cindy Hales. She's been in the game forever, right? She is one of the first, she's part of the Dirty Dozen, the female side, right? One of the first 12 women to have gotten her black belt in the US. So super cool. She's been around the game forever. She's friends with my coach, Ivan, and so we have that mutual connection. So that was really cool to be able to meet her and go train. I actually have a funny story about the first time I met Cindy. She won't remember this, and I texted her these pictures after. Actually was she reffed at the Revolution, my first jiu-jitsu tournament. So if you're watching, let's see if I can zoom in on that. That's her watching me, and yeah, me going for a double right there. And Cindy, I lost that match due to ref's decision, but I'm actually gonna blame that on Ivan, because him and Johnny, who you know, they were just yelling at you the whole time, so so I forgive you for that. But no, guys, Cindy's super cool. She's the owner of Sleeper Jiu-Jitsu in Linwood, Washington. Go check it out if you're in that area, right? Her wealth of knowledge is so vast. Great gym, amazing, beautiful facility. They have one of those elevated floors, so it's super soft and forgiving, right, for throws, takedowns. So you're not going to get super beat up on that. And it was a great environment. Everyone was super cool, super welcoming. I really enjoyed this conversation. It was cool. We just vibed really well. Her story speaks for itself, guys, so I'm going to shut up and get to it. But before I do, real quick, I just want to remind you guys, get yourself some supplements. Go to jockofuel.com. You get 10% off by using the code GOODFORTHESOUL. They got everything. The protein powders, the greens, the joint warfare, vitamin D3, all the good stuff. Everything you need, right? So go check it out. Again, 10% off. Use the code GOODFORTHESOUL at checkout. Go support yourself by getting some awesome American-made products, guys. And without further ado, here we go. Episode number 10 of Good for the Soul with Cindy Hales. So,
perfect.
Professor, thank you so much for sitting down. I really appreciate your time. I'll add all the fun stuff in your pedigree later so we can just get into it. Where did your love for jiu-jitsu come from?
Well, I think it just started from, I was one of the people that saw the early UFC tapes, right? And I saw Hoist Gracie doing his weird stuff, and it stuck in my mind, right? And 5 years later, I was on a bus and I saw Marcelo's school in Tacoma, and I was like, that's that thing. And I got off the bus and I went in and I joined, and I think I've done jiu-jitsu pretty much every day since then.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you had no wrestling, combat sports experience before that. You just saw it, and then literally on the bus, like, wow, let me go try this thing.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Never had done any of it. Thought it was really weird, but saw the early stuff and just didn't understand it, and kind of thought it was magical, and then I was like, I gotta learn that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. That's funny. That's a similar story for me. Like that day one was like, I need to know this.
Yeah, I've gotta learn it.
So what was that experience like for you, walking into Marcelo's gym for the first time?
Well, Marcelo actually, I think, did a great job of welcoming me and making me feel comfortable in the gym. I remember him doing the things. Now as a teacher, I kind of oh, do that thing where he let me do the moves on him. He was selling the moves, right? Letting me win, doing all of that. He was just super welcoming, and I just kind of got hooked right when I went in. It was a different environment back then, right? It was in 2000, 2001.
Wow, okay.
So I was, I think, the only girl, but it was in Tacoma. It was a lot of military guys and army guys, and then just some random weirdos off the street. And yeah, I just really credit Marcelo. Was really, really nice and welcomed me and let me train with him, and he used to let me go around with him to seminars and stuff, and I just kind of showed up as much as I could and just was always there, and he showed me stuff. So yeah, I just fell in love with it, and like I said, I've been training ever since.
Cool. Yeah, talk to me about those early days of training jiu-jitsu. And again, the female perspective. My mom, she's curious about starting jiu-jitsu now. Hey, how do I get over that feeling of training with guys? What were those early days like? And then maybe jump forward to today. You've seen jiu-jitsu grow incredibly. What's then versus now?
Well, I think in the early days, especially I think looking back on it, it was, all of it was much cruder, right? I think same kind of community. People were, like I said, Marcelo was really welcoming. Everyone was really nice to me. The training, the technique wasn't as far as it is now, right? When I remember some of the old videos that I used to think were cutting edge, now I watch them and I'm like, oh wow, we really have come a long way, right? But I think that's kind of a neat thing in like any up and coming sport, to watch not only like kind of my own growth, but the growth of the sport. And I don't think jiu-jitsu is fully developed yet, so I like just like really watching the techniques evolve, watching the new generations come up, doing all the things like you meant to note, right? Seeing like all the younger kids, the guys at Ivan's, the younger kids, like watching what they're gonna bring the sport to. I'm excited about that. I like the growth of the sport. You know, it was, I will call, like, say maybe it was much dirtier, right? A little grittier. Yeah. Gyms were grosser.
Yes.
Right?
Didn't have nice mats like this, a nice balancing safe floor.
Yeah, so, you know, kind of fast forward to today, after 20 years of training, got to kind of be around a lot of great people, be in a lot of different gyms, and just over that time, like thinking about like, what would I, if I could have my own gym, what would I make it? And kind of pick and choosing the parts that I liked from other gyms, and then just, you know, as more people got in, there's more money, so there's nicer gyms, there's nicer facilities, bigger spots, more people. You know, I feel privileged to have been in those early days, right? I think that's kind of a neat thing, to kind of a bragging right of like, oh yeah, I remember those guys way back when it was like that, but I'm also excited to see the future of the sport and have a little hand in that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your white belt phase. Like, what was that like back then for you? What was the rolling like? What was that 3 to 6 month timeline for you till you got your first submission?
Dude, well, I know, you know, now as an instructor, I have those white belts that come in and I'm like, whoa, slow down, less intensity. I didn't really have a place to put myself in, like in my mind back then. I was one of those people. Okay. Right? I tried as hard as possible, we could say, right? Okay. I'm the youngest child, so I was used to being beat up, right? And I was just like really enthusiastic and I wanted to try really hard. I think I was a total spaz, right? But man, I don't even know when my first like true submission in the gym was. I think, you know, maybe 6 months or so into it, I went to a tournament. It was like an in-house tournament. Marcel had a school on Nickerson Street in Ballard.
Oh, yep.
Okay, so I was training in Tacoma, but there was this tournament, Nickerson Street, and there was a girl there. I think that might have been my second tournament, and I went against a girl, and I was like, oh my God, I'm on top. I've never been on top, right? I was like, oh my God, these moves are working. So, you know, that really gave me hope. I also went to another tournament where I competed against like a teammate dude, and that was a little disheartening because I was like, oh man, I just got crushed. Right. But yeah, so I think it's nice to not have to go with the dudes and have like the own division. So I think for girls, like, you know, the growth again of the sport and like having a little more even playing field. Yeah. But I try to think back when I have like the spazzy white belts now, I'm like, you are that person, right? Be compassionate, be compassionate to them, help them, right? Try and guide them in the right way. And so, yeah, I look back on it fondly, right? Of those early days. Like I said, it was just, dude, some of the stuff I'm like, I don't even know what the hell I was doing, right? I was like just bending things the way that they didn't bend. For sure. Right? No, that at our early stages of jiu-jitsu, that's what it seems like, right? And I think that was like, you know, now there's like all the rules and people were like, oh, you know, do you do footlocks? Did you learn these? And it's like, when I first started jiu-jitsu, like pretty much everything was legal. Yeah. Right? Everything was legal. It was like if it hurt, it was legal. It did not matter. That's a rule at Ivan's. Yeah, right? And that's like that kind of old school. And then, you know, like, oh, people stopped doing footlocks and kind of that segment off and all of these rules. And, you know, again, I look back fondly on those times of kind of the Wild West. But I believe that the structure of today is what makes it more accessible to more people. Absolutely. Right? And makes it a little safer. I think there's a place for the all out, but like the stepping stones for people, and I think that's like kind of one thing that's helped the growth of the sport. That's wonderful. Yeah. From your perspective, again, my goal being to try and get more people through that door for the first time. How can a man or woman really make that leap into the gym for the first time, you know, from your coaching experience? What do you think is holding them back, and how can you get them through the door? Well, I think there's a few things. I think a lot of people maybe are like just intimidated, one of jiu-jitsu or just one of starting new things,
Yeah.
right? I think anything new that you start is, people are apprehensive.
Yeah.
So I always try to remember that. When I've started new things, kind of having that feeling of being a beginner and always trying to remember that feeling, and then kind of meet people where they're at and like be super welcoming. And like I said with Marcelo, I was terrible, but he like really like kind of made me feel like I could do it.
Cool.
Right? And like trying to find little parts where you can show people like, hey, this is accessible for you.
Mm-hmm.
And toning down kind of some of the techniques or the warm-ups, and like just being like, do as much as you can, right? And like everything is little baby steps, right?
Yeah.
And I try and I remember hearing like that, like it's a marathon, not a sprint, all of those kind of like little cliches that we hear,
Mm-hmm.
right? I try to remind other people of that as they're coming in, make an environment where people feel comfortable.
Cool.
And yeah, just try to do that and try and make people see that it's fun. I think that's the biggest thing, is like jiu-jitsu is hard, but if you can make people have some fun within it, then people are more likely to come back and want to do that.
Totally. What did getting, you made it through that first 6 months, you're in the game still. What did, at the time, maybe your thoughts on the belt system? Like, were you striving to get that blue belt? And then once you got it, what did it mean to you finally getting that first color around your waist?
Yeah, I remember, well, I remember being most excited about my first stripe on my white belt.
Okay.
I still believe that, like, even when I give people, I'm like, to me, this is the best. This is the best promotion you'll ever get, right? Is that first stripe, because I think it's super hard to come into the jiu-jitsu room, right? And like have people sweat all over you, hot breathe on you, right? All of those things. And just kind of start from a place where like I have no idea what I'm doing. And like kind of that first thing. So I like definitely remember that as like, I never even thought I would get the first stripe, honestly. I was like, I didn't really think I was gonna get anything. And I remember just being so stoked that I got that. And then I think everything between that and like black belt was just sort of a whirl, right?
Wow,
I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I got my first stripe. I'm actually doing this. And then, yeah, I was just like a little OCD. I think that, I guess it's probably, if you would have talked to blue belt or purple belt Cindy, I probably had more feelings within there.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, I really just think that my first stripe on my white belt was the best thing that I've
That's
ever,
great.
right? That's like, to me, still like, dude, I can't believe I even got that far.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how I'm where I am today, but
no, that's
it
amazing.
started with
that's
that
cool.
first stripe, right?
I haven't heard
was just
that
like,
perspective yet.
holy cow. And then honestly, I think in the middle of my jiu-jitsu journey, I really I was doing more no-gi and MMA. And at that point in my jiu-jitsu life, I was really trying to embrace the belts don't really matter. One, because, well, being me, I think I was in a room full of tough guys, and I still was never winning. Right? I was one of those people, I was like, well, maybe I will win some tournaments, but I definitely always was knew my place in the room, right? My place in the room was just there to learn.
So how did you, I mean, that's a really tough mental thing to deal with, kind of being on that bottom rung for a while. How did you overcome that?
Dude, I still feel like I'm there.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. I still feel like I'm there. And I think maybe I would like to frame it in a positive way of because I'm never the strongest person in the room, I definitely always am aware of well, you're not the best person in the room, so you've got to have all these other attributes, right? There's other things you need to bring to the table to have people believe in your moves, believe in you as a leader, right? So I there were times where I was like, I just want to win, but it was that was a futile hope, right? I've been in a room with a lot of tough guys, right? And it's kind of saying well, that's the wrong metrics to value, to judge myself on. So I need to find different metrics. And so that's what I kind of tried to do. It was I'm not going to be the number one. I'm going to be just trying to get better.
Cool.
So I kind of just look at that. And then I was around a lot of wrestlers. So it's I think the notion, at least what I've learned about in wrestling, is they don't have the belts. It's just you're as good as you wrestle that day, right?
Yep.
And that's the way it is. And I like the belts as a milestone for people's achievements, but I also like that notion of like, you're as good as you are that day, and you need to command respect in a different way, right? Not through the winning, right? Through like who you are in the room and what you bring to the table. And so I think those are the things that I try to focus on more. I think it's more out of self-preservation in many ways, right? It's like, okay, I'm not going to be Ivan, right? I've run my head into those walls many times, and it's like, well, just be thankful that you have really great people around you. And like now I try and solve those problems with like, well, being in the room, like I coach a lot of guys that it's like, okay, I can't like manage my room in that way. So if I look at kind of, you know, they say you shouldn't compare yourself to other people, but we all do. So if I like in a jiu-jitsu way try to compare myself to other people, I go and try and find like more even playing fields. Right, I like to go to Master World with the old ladies. I'm like, okay, I need to compare myself with the 47-year-old, 130-pound ladies. And that's like a fair metrics if I'm gonna have that comparison. And then the other ways I look at other metrics to grade myself on.
Totally. Well, tonight was the first night you and I got to roll, and it was awesome. You were doing your movements and the things you were doing I was super appreciative, and I was like, wow, you know what you're doing clearly, right? And the way you commanded the room and taught was a beautiful thing for me to witness. And I know there's lots of people in the community, and females especially, who look up to you. Shout out to Preya down at Logic. You know, I reach out to some ladies, hey, I'm going to sit down and chat with Sydney. Like, what do you want to hear from her, right? So you do have people who look up to you. And in that sense, the kind of the mindset you're talking about, did you use the same metrics to compare yourself in competition, right? If you're in the room with a bunch of guys at the time fighting MMA, how did you translate it to, okay, now I gotta maybe flip the switch a little bit to competition? What was that like for you?
Well, I was very competitive my whole life, right? So I have, like I said, I was the spousy person that was I'm just trying my hardest, right? So I was very good at that side of it. That's where kind of comparing myself when I couldn't win, I needed to reassess the metrics. But then, you know, in competition with other girls, I don't have a trouble trying to like go in that way, right? I really just wish I would have started. I wish I was younger, or like was in the scene now, right? I wish I was in the jiu-jitsu scene now with all the girls. Right, because when I was coming up, there wasn't as many opportunities for competition. Right. So I was always like very thankful when I was able to find people to compete against. Kind of the lack of competition pushed me to be able to compete against. Like I got to fight Megumi Fuji, who was like the best lady in the whole world. Like she was my idol, right? And I was able to fight MMA against her. So it was like really just like maneuvering and trying to find the people that you did want to fight. And
so was the lack of jiu-jitsu competition what drove you into MMA? How did that transition happen?
Kind of, yeah. There was like not as much opportunity. IBJJF had some tournaments, but I had won IBJJF Pan Ams as a purple belt. I won the black belt division, right? Purple through black was all combined together. And then it was like, I was a poor jiu-jitsu person. I was like, I can't be like flying myself all around, right? I couldn't afford that. So it was like, oh, well, maybe there's more opportunity in MMA. And so I kind of tried to do that a little bit. So yeah, I got some opportunities there, but still it wasn't as big as it was now. So, I don't really regret any of it. Like I said, I wish I was like 10 now and could be doing that and seeing that, but it's cool to be on the other side of it and see the beginning of it. I just feel pretty thankful that I got to compete as much as I did. I had a lot of injuries too. I had some injuries coming into the sport from prior life, and then I've battled that. That's been like one of the things that's like kind of been the bane of my existence. So just kind of working around those things, and I see kind of the harder competition is just like managing myself, right? Managing myself and keeping my body together and not like doing too much and being a nutball and hurting myself. Right. And, it's like kind of like now I see that as like, dude, jiu-jitsu is like the battle against my own mind, right? Like how can I stand in for the long haul? What's the right mindset to keep me here, right? Not to get frustrated. We were talking about, I know Ivan's had a hip replacement. Talked about Johnny, a bunch of people I would consider from my era, right? We're all getting older. So it's like, looking at like my real goal now is like, how can I sustain in the room
totally
until I'm really old, right?
Yeah,
how can I do that? And so that's something that's like fresh on my mind. And then also as a coach, like how can I help my students get to their goals, but also keeping them as safe as you can within their goals.
Cool.
Right?
Totally.
So
No, I love
those
that.
kind of things.
Along those lines, what was your maybe biggest personal setback throughout your career, whether it was MMA or Jiu-Jitsu, and how did you overcome that?
I think I would say my biggest setback would be kind of injuries, and then I didn't understand all the mindset stuff, right? When I first was coming up, I kind of talked to some of my friends. I'm like, did they talk about this to us early on? Because I don't remember all of this, right? And I definitely, didn't grow up in a family that embraced those things, or even I don't think knew about it.
What things specifically?
Mindset things and like how you frame things in ways, like win or learn was not something I grew up with.
Okay, right.
Win was what I grew up with.
Yeah.
Right? And so like just seeing people that it's like, well, not comparing yourself to other people, right? All of those things I'd never heard until I was an adult.
Gotcha.
Right? So I don't know if I'm like slow, right? Could be, right? But those were just not things that I was introduced to.
Gotcha.
So I'm very, very into learning about those things now and like catching my brain up to it.
Cool.
Right?
Oh, that's great.
Because I didn't really know about all that, right? I didn't know about like training maybe smarter, right? Kind of like preserving myself.
Yeah.
I didn't have like a lot of those role models, right? I might
there was no one around, and now
I
you
may
get
have
to
missed
be
the boat, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's why I'm like, have people talked to us about this, or possibly I may have not been listening.
Yeah.
I totally leave that up to possibly, right? I was a dum-dum, right? Doing my own thing, but like so it's like I try to now like really think like, okay, there's like easier ways. There's an easier path and like a nicer path, like personally like nicer path for yourself of like, oh, you can see these humps, right? When I would lose, I remember I went to Abu Dhabi and I lost in the first round and I was like devastated. Fully, like I quit my job. I was like training. I had just come off of a neck surgery, right? I had a neck surgery. I came back. Ivan helped me get into Abu Dhabi, and I had like 2 months. I hadn't trained in over a year. Had 2 months to train.
Wow.
Right? I'm like, I cut weight. I did everything, right? And it's like, dude, I got to do this. This is my chance. Someone got me in, right? And then it was like, it was devastating to lose. And it was like, I was ill prepared for like how to mentally deal with that. And then like going back and like, do you want to keep doing this, right? Like coming home and like, oh, I didn't win. What do you do now, right? And then like, I think I've learned about that, win or lose. Definitely the grind of like training for something, right? You get into that like, I'll train hard, and I really enjoy that aspect. I enjoy that more than kind of anything else. Of just like, I like to set a goal and then plot around how I'm going to get to that goal. And I like the mundane of the grind of the room, right? That's my favorite part. If I really think about it, it's like I like to show up every day and work. Right? I like that part of things because it's very stable to me.
For sure.
Right? And then like after any tournament, win or lose, I would always get into this deep depression. Right? And I think it was like, it wasn't about losing always. It was because sometimes I would win. Right. And then the same thing would happen. It's like, what the fuck is this? Right? What is this?
That crash.
It's the crash of like, what am I doing now? Right? I don't have anything to do because I'm very like,
all in.
Very intense on things. So it was like hyper focused on something, and then that thing ends, and then it's like if you didn't have something immediately next to move into, it was like that, like, where's my self-worth? Right? Kind of feeling. And like trying to, I think teaching really saved me from that. Right? Of like, I enjoy the fact that like, win or lose, I come back to my kids' class and they're just stoked. Coach Cindy's here. Right?
You have a great kids' class.
And they don't really care if you win or lose. Right? They're like, I don't really care. They don't care. They just want you to talk to them about what's new in their life, and they want you to be there. And so that I found to be very soothing. Right? Because it's like, oh, you can have this kind of narcissistic competition thing, but then you're like, I come back to real life and we're just here learning moves, right?
Totally.
And so I like that.
Totally. I personally as well have had many injuries on the jiu-jitsu mats, some pretty severe, and you go through those things and I question like, man, how do I get back to it? Do I want to do it? Okay, I do want to do it. How do I get back to it? But I mean, it sounds like that's coming off neck surgery, hadn't trained in a year. You go out to Abu Dhabi, you didn't place, you didn't win. When you came back, how did you really get through that moment, and how did you decide that you wanted to stay on that path of training?
Dude, I probably came back and cried in my room a lot, honestly, right? Did that whole thing, and then it's like, well, what do I like doing? I like being in the gym, right? It's kind of that like bottom line answer. There's been many times in my jiu-jitsu career where that question's come up, where I've talked about it, I've like tried to break up with jiu-jitsu, right? Like many times,
totally.
right? Everyone's like, oh,
it's
I love
hate sometimes.
Everyone's like, I love jiu-jitsu. I'm like, I have a complicated relationship with jiu-jitsu, right? But it's like, I think that's a good thing. It's like taught me a lot about like myself. I'm like, where do I really want to go? Do I want to do this, right? Is this what I want to do, right? We talked a little bit about like COVID, right? Just opened my school right before COVID. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, what the fuck did I just do, right? This is nuts.
Yep.
Right?
Totally.
Should I, and before I started this school, I almost was like gonna break up with jiu-jitsu. I was like, I don't really know if I'm gonna be doing this. Do I want to start a school? I'm getting old. Looking at some knee replacements, right? All of that. And it's like, almost didn't do it. And then I started this school, and it took me about a year to build the school out. I taught out of a basement, right? And like sublet, and it was like, what the fuck are you doing, right? Went through that whole thing, and it's like, dude, you know what I do sometimes is I go and start, in my mind, pretending I'm gonna get a regular job. Mm-hmm. I go through these things where I like...
You run the scenario in your head?
I run the scenario in my head. Sometimes I write a resume. Sometimes I look up jobs that I might want to get, and then I like basically like crack myself up because I'm like, you would never fucking do that, right? I like go down that path of like, fuck jiu-jitsu, I'm gonna go do this other thing that's gonna be way better, and then I start to go down that path, and I'm like, you hate this, right? You've had one of those jobs. I've had a corporate job, and then it's like jiu-jitsu's not so bad, right? And then so I kind of I don't know if that's a good answer.
No, it is. It's your answer.
That's what I do. It's like, it's not been a smooth, like, great love affair, right? But I'm still here doing jiu-jitsu, right? And I like it, and I'm like, this is what I'm going to be doing. It's like, definitely nowadays I look at jiu-jitsu with a little different lens. Mm-hmm. What I'm most excited about jiu-jitsu now is like learning the business of jiu-jitsu, right? Running a business.
Different skill sets.
I've been in, I've opened my own gym. I've run other people's gyms. I've done many different configurations of those things. Mm-hmm. And finally I have like my own gym where I have, I'm in charge. I have some business partners, but they're definitely very, very supportive of me, like running a business the way I want to run the business, and like teaching me those things. I think the smartest thing I did, like I said, I'm not a super smart person. I think the smartest thing that I did for myself was be very, very choosy about the partner that I did get for my gym, right? And like I said, I've had a lot of other configurations of work as far as jiu-jitsu. And oftentimes I was lacking in like how to run a business, right? How do you run a jiu-jitsu business? I'm good at jiu-jitsu. I'm not good at the other side, right? And that was one thing I think Gracie Baja was very good for, is they had the framework for like people who didn't know how to run a business, where they kind of have this framework or this model that helps you, right? And so I had that, and that kind of helped me learn some things. Mm-hmm. And then I started like noticing the people in the room that it's like, oh, that guy looks like a business guy, right? And started kind of picking people's brains. And before I didn't really care, I was looking for the guy with the best technique in the room to talk to, right? That was the person I was honing in on. And then later it was like, okay, I'm honing in on, something different, something like I want to learn about this other side, right? And I think I picked a good partner that's been able to teach me like the skills that I don't know running a business, right? Totally. And like I said, now I just like I try and learn that. Like I learned jiu-jitsu moves. It's like a slow grind. I make a lot of mistakes, right? It's a lot of like trial and error. I like my partner. They let me like fuck up a lot of stuff, right? They let me like kind of muddle my way through things, and they kind of bumper me on the sides, give me advice, and then we reconvene what went right, what went wrong, and like building that way, and really just kind of studying those things. So it's like, oh, a whole new world of jiu-jitsu within jiu-jitsu for me.
Cool.
Right? So I think there's always stuff to learn, and so yeah, hopefully I'm gonna be able to keep myself busy in the room for like 30 more years.
I love that. That's wonderful. No, along those lines, because you have been around so many gyms like you were talking about, you finally get to open your own. What do you believe makes a successful jiu-jitsu gym?
Well, I think there's many configurations of a jiu-jitsu gym. Like I think about the gym that I run today is probably not the gym I would have gone to when I was fighting, right? And so I think one of the things that has made me feel better or more successful as a gym owner in this configuration of my gym is being like very honest with myself about what I want out of the gym, what kind of gym I want to run, right? I've run gyms where it's like, oh, we're gonna do a little bit of everything, right? When I was doing a little bit of everything, I was doing that. Then, you know, kind of running what other people wanted me to run out of the gyms, doing all of this, and then it's like when I started this gym, it's like, there's a lot of guys running fight gyms, right? And I definitely think there's huge need for fight gyms. I'm not gonna run a fight gym, I'm gonna run a gi jiu-jitsu family gym.
Cool.
Right? And so it's like, okay, I wanna be, I think prior Cindy would have been like, that's not very tough, right? It's not a tough gym.
Right.
It's not a tough gym. You want to be at the gym with all the guys smashing each other, right? And then like I would have gotten insecure about that, and like wanted to change, right? And so like really being able to say like, okay, you can like all these things, but you know what's the niche that you're the best at, right? And I feel like the thing that I'm the best at and that I like the most is teaching kids and just teaching like regular people, right? I like competing, but I find that like that's something that I'm good at, and that's like a niche that I can fill within the community, right? We have like tough jiu-jitsu, I think we have tough guys, but I definitely try to, you saw the room, is like all kinds of people.
It was,
all kinds of people,
great.
right? Huge diversity of people, and trying to make all of those people feel super welcome, right? When I get guys in here that are like, dude, I want to fight, and I'm like, dude, I have another gym I think you should go to, right? And I think that's like, that would have been hard for me at a prior point in my life. I would have been like, I want to be that gym. I want to be all the gyms, right? I want to be all those things. And it's like, you can't be all the things. You need to decide what you want to be super confident and understand that, and kind of drive forward with that, and pull the people in that are going towards that. And then when people have other goals, right? When someone's like, oh, I outgrew this, being very open to be like, hey, I want to move you to the next thing, right? I think this place is going to be the next thing for you.
Cool.
Right? And like being mature enough, being secure enough to be able to do that, right? And so those are the things that I kind of work on within my gym. And yeah, I think that's like, you know, you have, just like in any sports, you have like kind of those entry level, you have pee-wee soccer teams, you have like high school soccer teams, they feed into the next level, feed into the next level, and then you got the pros, right? And so it's like, all layers of that are important. You need to collect people all along the way. You need to have like a solid foundation, right? I want to be like, I don't want to be the crappy family jiu-jitsu school that people are like, they don't have good technique, right? I think I used to equate those things, right? Family jiu-jitsu is like the one that's not very good, right? And I don't think that that's true. I don't think those are like one or the other, right? I think you can have both. So that's kind of how I look at those things now. And like I said, that took me a long time to grow in that way. But yeah, that's what I kind of just like try and stay focused on what I like to do. What, you know, I try to keep things fun for other people, but I have to be here too. So I want it to be fun for me, and I want it to be sustainable. So I try to run a gym where it's like, okay, I have a place here, and those kind of things. And then like, dude, I like to go down to sweaty wrestling and all the, you know, it's like, man, if I was perpetually like 20, I'll probably still be in those rooms. Right? But it's like, man, there's a new season for everything.
Absolutely.
And just like, I want to be in the scene as long as I can. So it's like always like finding the place where I can do that. And
Wow.
yeah.
No, thank you for sharing that, because it is really inspiring, that level of mental growth you go through, and that love-hate with jiu-jitsu that I've had as well. You know, like, do I love it? Do I not? You know?
Yeah.
So that's really cool to hear how you're still here and how you view your own maturity, growth in jiu-jitsu, and your students are going to be just fine, because this is the first class I've taken from you tonight, and you were showing triangles, right? Basic moves for a room full of people, all levels, and I was learning little details that I had never seen before. So I was super appreciative that I could learn from you. So that was great. Along those lines of building that foundation of jiu-jitsu, right? We talked about, getting people through the door for the first time, but okay, we know the blue belt blues is a thing, right?
Yeah.
It's a thing in jiu-jitsu. How do we, what is the reason from your perspective of years on the mats that once people get a blue belt, they go away? And how do we keep those people on the mats for longer?
Ooh, well, yeah, that's a great question. I think it's a multi-part question, right? I think, well, some is injury, right? If you take like a pie of like, what are all the reasons people quit your gym, right? Or leave.
Right.
What are all the reasons? People get hurt, try and deal with the safety issues, right? The training, how you manage the room. I think trying to keep people engaged on the team, right? Trying to keep people in the room where it's like, keep people wanting to help the people below them, trying to give them other little things to hook them into the room, right? Create the community for people, where it's like you don't want to let all your friends down, kind of thing, right? It's like if you're just one person coming into it, I think it's easy to be like, I got my blue belt, I'm good enough, this is hard, there's something else interesting that I'd like to go do, right? But if you have friends in the gym, people have the friends, then that keeps them in the gym a little more, right? You don't want to bail on your friends.
Right.
I think getting people involved in coaching, getting people involved in teaching the kids, right? Any way you can kind of hook people into the program. I think, in jiu-jitsu sometimes we think about like, oh, it's just the competitors, right? That's one track you can go down, but there's like a lot of other ways, right? For people to support the team. So I try to find those ways, and then, lots of blue belts still leave.
Yeah. If I can solve that problem through this project, that would be life-changing.
Dude, if you could come up with the answer and tell me how I can get people not to leave, right? But I feel like if you can get them to purple belt,
it's still a better world.
If they don't move away and they don't get really, really hurt, I feel like you can usually keep them, right?
Yeah.
I think it's setting a different expectation. I think maybe early on when the expectation's like, you got to be a banger in the room, and that's the way to be, right? If you couldn't be the banger in the room, then maybe there wasn't a place, right?
Right, totally.
Right? I think, well, when I started, it was like a game for fucking 18 to 30-year-olds.
Right.
There's no old guys. There's maybe some old guys, but they sat on the corner, right? They didn't really totally train. It was like, oh, there's the businessman.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I don't know if, we don't really talk about it in that way, but there was always like, there were the jiu-jitsu competitors, and then the businessmen. Right?
Yeah, very real thing.
Right? And I think in fight gyms, there's still that, right? I've got a gym full of businessmen and families. So it's like, if you can find a space for those people to feel comfortable. A lot of times I think a lot of the like feeling comfortable in the gym, like maybe, well, at least people talk to me about it as a girl thing, but I think it's like a person thing in a lot of ways, right? I think there's like, if you're an older guy, you're like a 30-year-old programmer that doesn't want to be a world champion, but you're like, but I want to do that thing.
Yeah.
Right? There's not always an avenue for that.
Right.
Right? Because like, what people see as jiu-jitsu guy is like the world champion.
Right.
Right? That's what we all think of. The jiu-jitsu guy is the guy winning tournaments, or the fighter, or whatever. So it's like really showing that like, no, these guys have a space in the room, and creating that space. And so that's one way I try to keep some of the older dudes in, right?
I like that. Yeah, that's great. Because if we can keep anyone on the mats longer, again, I think the more people in this world that train jiu-jitsu, the better society we'll have. Like I truly believe that. So
I believe that.
If we can keep them a little longer, if they make it to purple belt and stop, then we're good. But just a little bit longer would be great.
Yeah. I think keeping it fun for people, keeping people you know, you don't want to bump. It's like always you don't want to do too much bumpering. You don't want to make it too soft. I always am like, don't make it too soft, right? And then we got to go beat the guy up.
Yep,
right?
totally.
This is fake jiu-jitsu, right? There's always that like, is it a McDojo? Is it this way? You know, so it's like the happy middle is the way to go, and just always trying to kind of realign towards that. So.
No, that's a great answer. Yeah, I love that. For my own personal curiosity and our close family and friends, what was meeting Ivan like for the first time and your relationship with him back then? Just as friends. What was Ivan like 20 whatever years ago?
Okay, so I don't know if this is exactly right, but I believe the first time, I first met Ivan, I believe, at Ballard Firehouse. Okay, so Ballard Firehouse was like, I don't even know if it was necessarily Gracie Baja. Maybe it was Half Gracie. But he came in. I remember him triangling me, like body triangling me, right? And being like, do you love me? Or tell me I'm sexy. Or, right?
Doing Ivan funny stuff.
Something like
Whispering in your ear.
Yeah, something like this, right? And I remember I trained with Ivan. I didn't train, I kind of trained around Ivan, right? I was in the same training area as Ivan. He was training for fights out of Ring Sports with Eric Dahlberg. Dahlberg was helping coach him, and Ivan used to wear that big cup on the outside. Probably still does, right? And I remember he would like have like cup sweat, and he would like pour it on people, right? Like I remember those kind of things about Ivan, right? But I also, things I can say about Ivan is like Ivan was one of the first guys in jiu-jitsu. He was like, Mama, you need to do this for yourself. You got to do this. You need to be doing this. You're really good. You don't need to be worrying about all these other people, right? Really always like pushing me forward about like, you know, Ivan's Ivan, right? Ivan's Ivan, but he was always like sitting me down like, no, you need to do this. You've got these talents. You need to go do this, right? Always really like kind of giving me that extra push on the side. Like, what are you doing? You need to be doing this for you. You know, like those kind of things. And I really appreciate that from him. And, you know, I've heard that from many other people. He's Ivan. He's like a little crass, but when it comes down to it, he's like, dude, he's always been there, right? To help people, to support people. I look at his team and, you know, the community he's grown there. I remember when I used to train down with him, he was always very welcoming. You know, he did things like tell me I'm sexy and stuff too, but he was like always right there helping you. He when I had my first amateur fight, Ivan was my corner guy, right? Like I said, Ivan has been nothing but helpful for me, and so it's like I have great memories of Ivan.
That's awesome.
Right? Like Ivan being Ivan.
Ivan being Ivan, that's great.
In his tiny shorts, I remember, you know, sweaty wrestling.
He still wears his Valentudos around.
Dude, I remember when I went into the gym, and I think they like were like, you have to wear these. I'm like, I don't know, right? So, okay. No, I'm a big fan of Ivan's and Johnny and all those guys down there, right?
Yeah, I obviously love Ivan. I've been training with him a long time, and I'm super appreciative that he reached out to you for me so I could come and train and learn from you and have this conversation. At this stage in your career coaching, now that you do have your own gym, what is something positive that you're seeing on the mats? Whether it's technique, culture, attitude, what is a positive thing about jiu-jitsu that you see from the coaching perspective?
Dude, I think there's a lot. I would say from the technique perspective, the technique is just like blowing up, right? The level of technique, even with the younger kids, is like way above the level that I started at, right? Like what was high level in the early days when I was starting is just like kind of like, what the fuck is that when you see it now, right? When you're like seeing what kids are doing, you know, watching the Rutola brothers, holy shit, right? And you just watching any of them. I've reffed a lot, and like I've seen a lot of kids coming up, right? Watching those kids now like moving into other avenues. You see like Chase Hooper, right, in the UFC. I remember seeing him at Revolution as a little kid. Cami Guerin, who was Rich Guerin's daughter. She's like going for like the Olympics in wrestling, right? Seeing all, we have that kid Tenoch here, right? He started at 5, watching, you know, just his level of technique growing. All the kids, like I see, it's like I think we haven't hit that upper upper ceiling of technical, like all the techniques aren't there yet, right? I don't think, like in boxing, pretty much everything's developed.
Yep.
Right? I don't know if there's new shit coming out of boxing. You don't really see it. Right? There's like maybe people doing things a little different, but
boxing's boxing.
Boxing's boxing.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of sports, it's like, people maybe are getting stronger, right? They're like doing those kind of things, those games, but like technical games, you're not seeing like, in jiu-jitsu there's a new move all the time. What's this new move? Look at those kids doing that. What's this choke? People are asking me, and it's like the fact that people are still innovating. I like that. I like to just see like, where the hell is this gonna go, right? How's the game gonna evolve? So I think that's like one of the more exciting things I'm watching. Dude, seeing all the girls in it, right? I have like my kids class, sometimes it's more girls than boys, which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
I sometimes in my adult class, sometimes I'll have like a 50-50 split. Crazy.
That's awesome.
Right? So it's like, seeing that I think is a huge positive. Like you said, the more people that do jiu-jitsu, the better. And we're seeing like all types of people engage in jiu-jitsu, right? It's like, I have old people in the class, I have just like dudes that want to get fit, whatever. And you know, you can get them in when they're like, I just want to get in shape, and it's like, oh, okay. And then it's like, I have plans of getting you a little deeper. Right?
That's awesome.
So it's just like, just seeing that, and like you said, like your mom is like, how do I get into jiu-jitsu? It's like, I think it's like exciting that people's moms like know jiu-jitsu, right? They know what that is. Like, my mom didn't know what the fuck jiu-jitsu was. When I started, she's like, what are you doing? What is this? I don't, right? There was no frame of reference, and now she like knows about UFC and all of that. So it's like, I think the mainstreamness of it is exciting. Like I said, I liked that when it was like kind of the niche underground sport, but I think it's a better use to the world as a mainstream sport.
What about the inverse of that? As a coach, what is something negative you see in either the culture, technique, or just on the mats that you don't like? Something that grinds your gears maybe as a coach. Dude,
I'd probably stand alone in this, and I definitely see the value in it, but there, you know, I'm not like all the shit talking kind of, right? In the jiu-jitsu like upper levels. I understand they're playing the heel. Right, I totally get it. I'm not a fan. I'm like I have friends who are like telling me all about like Gordon Ryan and all of it, and I'm like, more of that, right?
Why? What about it?
I don't know. I think it's just like a personality thing. I'm like, just don't find it very interesting.
So when you were fighting, you weren't talking shit to the girls' faces or on social media?
No. If I did, I was probably a loser for doing it. It's like, it's a grind my gears thing, not a, like, I hate it. I don't actually think it's a negative, because I actually, like, I can definitely argue the other side of, like, Gordon Ryan has built the sport up, right? He's another guy who's mainstreaming it, right? I can argue, you know, I like Chael Sonnen. He did the same sort of thing, right? Conor McGregor, I don't like him though, right? I just like naturally gravitate against that. I'm that person. I'm like, I don't like that. I totally get. I understand the need for it, right? But I'm like, I'm gonna be the like asshole that's like, I don't really like it. The curmudgeon. I'm gonna be the curmudgeon that's like, I think you should be nicer, right? I like Demetrius Johnson, right? He's a nice guy. Just seems like
everyone loves Mighty Mouse.
Dude, you know, I like Marcelo Garcia, another guy, classy, quiet. I like that kind of style. But yeah, Gordon Ryan, he can talk all the shit he wants as long as he's winning too.
He's the best. So
you know, I'm not trying to pick on him.
Yeah, no, for sure. What is your game in jiu-jitsu?
What is my game in jiu-jitsu?
What is your go-to? What's your game?
Well, dude, that's a hard question. My game right now is a bunch of weird shit, right? I do a bunch of weird, I made up a bunch of moves. I basically made up a bunch of moves because I can't really use my legs, right? I have some bad knees, so a lot of things I just improvise, and I'm like, I gotta figure out a way to make this work. I kind of feel like that's been kind of an overarching thing for my game in jiu-jitsu, is like, with every injury that I sustained, I got like a level up in my game, right? Because I would like have to learn a whole new way of doing things. Like I had a cervical fusion.
Wow.
So when I had my neck surgery, it was like, okay, never let anyone touch your head again. Never go on the bottom again, right? I was always like initially like a guard player.
Right.
Did all of that, and I trained with one Bulgarian guy. He's like, you won't do that anymore. Do not do that, right? You will need to be on top. You should grab on everyone's head before they have a chance to grab on your head. So I learned like, oh, top game. So that kind of like was the impetus for me to learn how to be on the top. Had a full shoulder rebuild. Like, oh, I'm laying down here and I can't get up. Whole new game when you can't use one arm, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you got to make up a whole new thing.
Yeah.
Same thing. I have had a lot of knee surgeries. So it's just like, you know, with each one of those, it's like, you know, I never really took time off. I was always teaching. So it was like, have the surgery, week later, you're back on the mat.
Yeah. And
Teaching and learning and trying to make those things work. And so it was like always like seeing it, I think another mindset thing of like, okay, I can be sad. I could have let it like take me out of the game, but it's like, okay, we're gonna figure out a workaround. And I think that's kind of a jiu-jitsu thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, well, take what you got, right? You're the skinny person, you're the strong person, you're the fat guy, whatever, you use what you got.
Yeah.
And you make your own game.
Yep.
And so it was just like, I always like seeing like any kind of obstacle or injury as like, well, you got all these other things, so you're gonna play your game this way. So, you know, my game now, I play this like kind of goofy hook sweep game. And I do all these things where I'm basically just keeping my legs to the outside, right? I don't like kind of those 50-50, a lot of those positions where your legs are too stuck, right? So I kind of have these like weird positions, right, that I play that people are like, it's funny, I have one guy who coached me and he'd be like, Matt, what are you doing? What are you doing? No. And then it would like turn out okay, like, oh, great job, right? It's like I don't, a lot of the stuff that I even play, I don't really teach it, right? I'll kind of teach it as like a one-off specialty thing, but I don't really believe that the game that I play is like the game that I should show my students, because my students have legs that work.
Right. No, that's totally fair.
And so it's like, you know, I definitely like augment those out of like, okay, here's what you got to do out of necessity, and here's the fundamentals that you need to teach someone.
Cool.
Right? And I see those as separate things.
Awesome.
So yeah, and I think now my game is like, I have little positions I like to play. I like to just roll around. I don't really always like, I don't even really care about going for submissions in one way. I really enjoy guard passing.
I saw that tonight. And you kept passing my guard and sweeping me. I was like, damn.
That's all I really care about is that middle space. I really like that middle space. I also, honestly, it's selfish because I feel like people don't get as mad at you when you're doing those, and so they don't want to hurt you as much. Right?
That's fair. Yeah, no, I hear you.
I find that like,
you get a blue belt who's a little fiery and
Dude, or like you get some guy and you're like gunning for him and tapping him out, and it's like, well, he's gonna do the same back to you. Right? And if you don't want him to do the same back, then don't be doing that to him.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yep.
So I used to not understand that, and I'm like, why am I getting hurt all the time?
Gotcha.
It's probably because I'm fucking being a maniac, right? And that other person is like, I'm gonna beat you.
Yep.
Right? And you know, fair or not, I definitely I like to think that I'm a realist.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, well, if you don't want people to come after you and try and rip your head off, probably you shouldn't do that to them.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's a great learning lesson again for those people walking through the door. Like, hey, like treat people how you want to be treated. On the mats. Yeah.
I have students and I'm like, dude, you're telling me you need someone to help you not hurt your neck or something? Well then, don't be grabbing on that guy's neck. Right? Nothing worse than the guy that's like, oh, don't touch my arm, don't touch my leg, try not to go hard here, and then they just try and murder you. Right? And then you try and do something and they're like, oh, it's like, I don't want to be that person. Right? And I understand I have limitations, so it's like, well, you want to play the game that you want other people to play to you, and then if they up the ante, okay, I'm gonna, as needed, meet that, but I spent 20 years playing that game, right?
You don't need to do that anymore.
You know, it's like, man, I'm almost 50, I'm 47, and it's like, you're not gonna last very long if you keep doing that, right? It took me a long time. It was one of those like learning lessons, and then a little bit I think I could blame it on other people, and then it's like, it doesn't really matter whose fault it is. Ultimately, it's your fault because you're the one getting hurt.
Yeah.
Right? And I try to teach. I had a little kid crying today, right? And it's like, okay, sit down and tell me what happened. And it basically was like, well, I was watching him. He wasn't tapping during the drills, right? 2 little kids.
Yep.
I know this hurts, right? They're not tapping. I'm like tapping for them. And then like he gets to sparring, and then he's crying, and then I'm like, dude, what's wrong? And he's like, well, the drills like kind of hurt my neck. I'm like, you were crying during sparring. You're telling me about something that happened 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And I talked to you, and I watched you, and there was none of that. And then we got to sparring, there was none of it, and then he kind of lost it at the end, right?
Yeah.
It kind of built up, and it's like kind of being like, hey, when it hurts, that's when you should tap.
Yeah.
And he's like, it didn't hurt my neck, it hurt my back. And it's like, well, whatever. If it hurts your knee, you should still tap, buddy.
Yep.
And he's like, oh.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, I
For
have
sure.
to take those same lessons about like those kind of things.
Well, now you get to share it with the younger generation. Hopefully sooner than people shared it with you and I at the time. So.
Dude, for sure, right? I was telling Tenoch about that the other day. We were watching, I had another kid being spastic, and I'm like, aren't you glad you learned at 5? Right? All those lessons, like
Yeah.
a lot of us didn't learn those things, right? How to do those things and be in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, you hopefully learn them somewhere along the line.
For sure.
Right? Yeah.
For sure.
What else?
We were talking about your game, but do you have a favorite submission you like watching the most? Where you're like, that is the submission I love.
Dude. Well, I don't know if I have. I really have I love all takedowns. I love to watch takedowns.
Cool.
Right? I love like high level takedowns. I don't know his real name, J-Flow.
Justin Flores.
Justin Flores.
Yeah, he's the man,
dude,
yeah.
watching his stuff. Any really beautiful chain together like wrestling and takedowns. I think because that's something I never honed as much as I would have liked to, right? And I feel now that I'm getting older, it gets harder and harder to do a lot of that.
Yeah.
I'm very jealous of it. I'm like, oh man, I think it's beautiful, right? When you see like high level wrestlers, high level judo guys, dude, it's phenomenal.
It is.
Right?
It is. I totally agree with you on that.
Right? I feel like, my ground is a little more savvy, and I really just wish I could do those giant throws, and I wish I could like cartwheel through the air and like reverse throws midair. You see those guys? It's like, that's what I most like. Just like, I could watch that all day long.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
I completely. We were talking about before the camera.
I can watch chokes. I like a lot of that stuff. I like all the berimbolo. I like the inverting. I really like a lot of the stuff that Nathan Orchard does. I like watching his, he like does some of his flows. They're very dynamic. They're very fluid. I like that big movement stuff, right? Dude, I wish I was young. A lot of that, like, it's like getting old. It's like, man, where was this when I was like able-bodied, right?
Totally.
And like, I remember being able to do some of those things. So it's like, yeah, if I watch anything, I really will watch
Justin Flores stuff.
I watch takedown stuff, right? I'll like go and find takedown stuff and just watch it and just be like, oh my God, look at that. It's freaking incredible.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's what I love the most.
That's awesome. I was telling you before we started, I had reached out to some women in the community who also train jiu-jitsu, who obviously know you, look up to you, and you're good friends with Leanne. Heather Woods. I don't know if you know Preya down at Logic. Yeah, some great women in the community. So I reached out to them, so I got some questions for you from them.
Okay.
At this stage in your career, what drives you to be on the mats?
What drives me? Dude, I just want to get better at stuff, right? Still, I think continued self-improvement, whether it's like technical improvement, mental improvement, and I think also just the ability, like I had so many people helping me, passing things on to me, right? I have like all this experience, and it's like now just talking about like, okay, my body is failing a little, like the ability to kind of pass on knowledge to people and then like watch them enact it, to me is awesome now, right? I really find like a lot of joy in that. seeing other people be successful is another thing I've never really like cared about too much. I was always very like focused on what I was doing, and now I'm like, oh man, I really like that stage of my life of like being able to like, I get really excited when I like show someone something, and then I look over and see him hitting it. Like that's pretty much my favorite thing now, is like being able to see that, and then just like I said, like being able to grow my business. The jiu-jitsu business is a hard business, right? I've been doing it for 20 years. Like I said, I wasn't a very good business person. Now I'm like, I would never have said this before, but it's like, I want to make money, right? I want to make money. I want to make money, do what you love. It's like, that doesn't pay your bills, right? So it's like watching the people who have great technique and have successful businesses, especially in this environment. This has been a whole nother like, oh shit, we got to get even more creative about how we do business and overcome people's other hurdles of COVID, of rules, of all these things, right? And it's just like, I think one thing that jiu-jitsu's taught me, it's like if you can't do something one way, you better find another fucking way to do it.
Cool.
Right? And that's what you do in jiu-jitsu, and that's what I try to like kind of implement in business. And so it's just like kind of just see the new challenges of it, and like coming back every day and getting people in the gym better, growing the gym. Those kind of things are really all I'm focused on.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. I love that. What's the best advice you've gotten?
The best advice that I've got. Well, I guess I didn't always take it, but I think the best advice that I've gotten was basically just like not to compare yourself to other people, right? And you need to compare yourself to former you, right? Past you, and like always like looking at that as the best metrics. And like I said, I think it was pretty simple. I never really understood that and took that to heart, right? And so I think that's like one of the life lessons that has helped me the most and helped me in jiu-jitsu the most, of like, okay, don't get too hard on yourself when you're not succeeding in the way that you wanted, right? It's just like, did you get a little better from yesterday? Did you do, like I don't even need 1%. I need like 0.25%, right? And like little gains, and then being able to look back over that more long vision versus like kind of short term. So yeah.
That's great. For women who are just going to be starting jiu-jitsu, women's only classes versus co-ed classes, where should they start?
I'm a big fan of co-ed classes, right? I think there's a place for women's classes, but really believe that the best way to learn it is just in the co-ed. I just think it's better. I don't know. I've had different ones, I've done all the women's only. I see where that's a very good way to bring people in, to bring women into it. But I think those are always with the goal in my mind of bringing them into the regular program, right? So it's, but I'll caveat that with like, I think you just need cool people in your co-ed program. And then you don't need a women's program, right?
Yeah, that's
you need a program where everyone is comfortable and everyone is respected, and then I think that can kind of hedge away the need for the women's program.
I love that. No, that's great. I've actually never thought about it like that. If you create the right culture and the right environment, those can mesh just fine.
Yeah. I'll argue, dude, there's little guys that come into jiu-jitsu rooms and don't want to get squished just as much, right? There's people, I think it's limiting to think that like women are the only people that have like issues, right? Within rooms with physical contact. I think a lot of people do, right? My experience, women have their own set of issues, right? That they're dealing with in a lot of times. But I think that again, if you can create the right place for people to feel comfortable, then that in a way can do away with the women's class. When I started, they would always be like, oh, you're a girl, teach the women's class. Right? You're gonna do the women's class. And it's like, well, usually I was just doing it because no one else did it, wanted to do it. and then there'd be one or two, and then those girls would leave, and then there's no more women's class. It's like, and I also, there were definitely times where people were like, there aren't girls, we don't want girls in the gym. I was in those gyms, right? Nothing against those guys. I think the culture is different. I don't think we can, I try not to. It's kind of like everything going on now. It's like you can't look at what's happening today or something in the past and say like, oh, that's like a bad person for saying that. That's just the culture, right? It's just the way it was, right? And it's like, I'm not trying to say anyone's like bad because of that. I think that's the way we all kind of grew up, right? And so it's like, I think as a girl in charge of a school, I think that's definitely, there's not a lot of girls running schools, right? So it's like, what the fuck would I do at the women's class? I'm the girl running the school.
Right.
Right?
Totally.
Right? So, and I have like people, it's like, I run the fucking school.
Cool.
You're gonna be a guy that's not a douchebag, or you're gonna have to leave.
For sure.
So that's kind of how I run the class, and so it's like, I think maybe if I was a guy and was trying to make women feel more comfortable, maybe that would be a barrier. But for me, that's not the barrier.
Cool.
Right? So I look at it a little different that way.
That's great. No, that's great. Do you have any stories of proving to a clueless man how badass a woman can be?
I do. I've had a lot of those, but I think it's a catch-22.
Okay.
Oftentimes.
How come?
I think sometimes when you take a badass girl, you take a girl and you want to have her beat up a guy in the room to like make him feel like a loser and emasculate him, it makes it harder for girls in the room in a lot of ways, right? Because it's like, I've been in rooms where it's like, I've had people like, where they're like, yeah, she's fucking you up, like kind of that banter, the gym banter. And now I'm like, dude, you're making it harder for me, right? Because you're putting this guy in an impossible situation, right? You're emasculating him. What's he supposed to do?
Right. He's only gonna fight you harder.
He's gonna fight me harder. And then if I win, he's gonna go home and not like ladies even more, right? I think a lot of that, I understand it, and I've definitely been part of that, where it's like, oh yeah, fuck that guy, we're gonna show him, right? That kind of thing. But it's another one of those things where it's like, I don't know if you really like convert people through force. It took me a long time to learn that, right? I often still wish, I wish you could. Sometimes that's an easier solution, right? It's an easier solution to beat people and think that they're gonna come back and be like, oh, I see the error of my ways. I don't find that that's usually what happens. But I will say, there's been, I joke because, well, a lot of it's happened. It used to happen a lot at Ivan's. When Ivan first opened his school, I lived in downtown. I lived on Capitol Hill, and I would come down there and I would train. And he was having lots of new guys, young guys, right? And I played that role. Feed the young guys to Cindy. Cindy smashes the young guys, right? And then, dude, even now, if I go out, oftentimes I'll hear like, oh my God, you're that girl from Ivan's that beat me up like 10 years ago. And then they'll call all their friends around, right? This girl kicked my ass, and then they'll buy me drinks, and it's like really weird and awkward, right? But so I think that's like a good side of it, but so it's another one of those things. I can argue both sides of pretty much every question of like, I think it's good for guys to know that girls can beat them up, right? I think that's a valuable lesson, but
it can't be the hammer always.
Sometimes I think that can go a little far, right? I think that can go like, maybe have the opposite results, like really, like humiliation is not, I don't know if that's my preferred way of teaching.
Cool. I completely agree. I mean, my dad taught me that when I was younger. Humiliation is the worst form of insult, because how do you come back from that?
Right?
On either side, you can't come back from that, breaking that person's trust, and the person who feels humiliated. How do you come back?
How do you build that person, right? How do you build that person, right? I think that's like, and I think those are nuances of coaching that we're all just learning, right? Like all these things. Like I said, I've been that person, like fuck that guy, right? Like I've done all those things. I've been that person, like that's how I prove my self-worth, is beating that guy. But it's like, well, what about the guys that I can't beat? Right? What about those guys? Are those guys not gonna respect me? Right? If this is the metrics of how we're gaining respect is through that, well, then how do I get Ivan to respect me? Right?
Totally.
So it's like, that's what I really had to like be like, is this really what you want to do? And then when you really think about like you said, the emotional way of learning, it's like, I want to keep people in the room forever because I love jiu-jitsu, right? And like, I want people to feel empowered by jiu-jitsu, right? And I think like, one time I used to teach at a karate school, right? I moonlighted at a karate, I didn't teach karate, I taught jiu-jitsu, right? It was when I was training at Baja. So I taught at this karate school, and the guy was very, very nice. I actually consider him a mentor. He like used to let me run my jiu-jitsu class, and there'd be new guys in there. And what would I do? I'd try and smash them. That's what I thought you did, right? And I would do that. And then one time he was talking to me, you know, and I was probably like mad about it, right? Like, oh, I had this experience, I'm like all wound up, fuck that guy, right? I smashed him, right? And then he was like, let me ask you, how many of those people signed up? Have you ever had any one of those people sign up that you did that to? And I was like, no.
Dang.
Right?
Yeah.
And I watch other people, guy or girl, where it's like, you can show someone that jiu-jitsu works in a controlled way, right? Or you can show them that you're in charge, right? Or you're better. Those are different.
Correct.
Those are different things, right? And that nuance, I think, there's a fine line within that, right? I'm really like, I don't want to be that person, right?
No,
so it's like, I want to figure out how to. There's another thing, I like try to listen to like a lot of leadership podcasts and books and like all that mindset stuff that it's like, oh, I never learned those things, right? Like in this environment, I honestly was like, force is the way you do it, right? That's the lessons I learned, right? That's how I think that's how many of us like learn. That's how you.
Well,
that's what we're
it's
here to
gotta
do.
be weird too, because for certain people, and like us, right? I started Ivan's, got beat up MMA once. I was like, cool, I need to go back and learn that forever. And similar to you. So for us it worked, but it doesn't mean for the mass it works.
Exactly.
Right? So that's a hard thing to overcome.
Yeah, and it's a fluid thing, right? It's like sometimes it works. Well, you see that in coaching. Sometimes I can push a person this way to get what I want, and that same person, another day, you push that way, and it doesn't have the result you want, right? It's like you have to read the person, you have to read them that day, you have to read their emotional state, right? In a room, you got to read 25 people's emotional state, and, you know, it's like that emotion of like really being in tune with that, and like, oh, that was too much. Oh, I didn't push enough, right? Because oftentimes then I can argue the side of like, don't want to bumper it too much. We don't want it to be fake, right? Because then you lose the lessons of the hardship, the struggle lessons. Because I think there's definitely lessons within the struggle, right? I think that's like one of the more powerful lessons that jiu-jitsu teaches people is like, dude, you're not gonna die. You can do this, right? You may feel like you're dying, but you're gonna survive, and you can like live in that hard space. And if you make it too easy, then you rob someone of that opportunity, right? So it's like, how much is just the right amount? It's
the ever-flowing balance of coaching and jiu-jitsu.
There's not like, do this exact thing for all people, right? It's like, okay, this person needs this now. Now they need a little softer touch. Now they need a little harder touch, right? And like just like in jiu-jitsu, you have all the techniques, right? Sometimes you use this technique, that technique. Sometimes you need to use like brute force. Sometimes you need a little like slickness, right? Same thing in coaching, same thing in life, right? Of like communication and all of that is like, sometimes I need to do it with niceness. Sometimes you need to do it with like a little like sharpness, right? And like trying to figure that out. And I think, like I said, that's like one of the things I just try to learn.
Cool.
Yeah.
No, I dig that.
So Ivan, I think, is very good at it. Man, I watch him like command a room, and he definitely can push people, right to that edge, right? Get like, how am I going to get the last ounce out of this guy without going too far? Right? And that's the coaches that can do that. That's a very powerful thing, and also requires a lot of trust in that person.
Definitely.
Right? And you see those relationships, the people that you can like go through those things with. There's very strong relationships, right? The people that are just like engaging it with anything like very surface level, they're not going to get that same thing.
Right. No,
right? So
I hear that.
Yeah, just all those kind of things. That's That's what I think about in jiu-jitsu,
Cool.
right? I never, like when I started jiu-jitsu, I thought like, I'm gonna learn some moves.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick people up.
Wow, that's how
Right?
it's evolved since,
And then
right?
like, dude, now I'm thinking about all these other things, right? I think that's like, for me, been one of the coolest things in jiu-jitsu is like, you know, I started because I saw Hoist Gracie and I wanted to beat people up.
Yeah.
Right? I wanted to be tough.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, that was 20 years ago. What are all the things that I've like gotten from jiu-jitsu, learned from jiu-jitsu, right? All those lessons. We talked about like being able to travel, like all of these things that I never would have thought like jiu-jitsu would have brought me in my life. I never thought I'd have a job in jiu-jitsu. Right? Never. There was not even anything to start in jiu-jitsu. It was just like some weird dudes in some outfits rolling around, getting sweaty, right? There was nothing like that. And it's like, to see, like a lot of times I'm like, oh my God, I have a gym. I have a jiu-jitsu gym. Cool. It's crazy, right? Like, it's still like, how did I do this? This is crazy, right? I'll tell people. I remember I had a job. I worked at Starbucks in their call center, right? And I hated it. And that was like really when I started jiu-jitsu. I had that, and then I was like, fucking hate this job. Fucking hate it. I don't want to do this. I don't care about this shit. And then finally I was just like, I told everyone, I was like, I'm quitting to be a jiu-jitsu world champion. And it was so, like, I look back on it and I'm like, I don't even know what I fucking meant by that, right? It was like not even a thing yet. It wasn't even really a thing. I was a blue belt. I was a blue belt. I didn't even, I just knew I didn't want that job. I didn't want that life, right? And that was like, I was like 20 something, graduated from college, should start a career. And then I started one, right? Oh, I'm on my path to being an adult. And then I was like, I don't want to do this. This is crazy. So I was like, I'm gonna be a jiu-jitsu person. I remember everyone being like, you're fucking crazy. Fucking crazy. But then like, a little bit, but then like 20 years later, people were like, holy shit, you did it. And I was like, but like when I did that, it was never in my mind like I'm gonna start a school or have a job. Like I never even thought that.
And then here you are,
I didn't think that far in my future, right? I was like, holy shit, I'm doing it, right? And so, yeah, that's, it's still pretty like bizarre, honestly.
Yeah, I dig that. Earlier you were telling me how exciting and how memorable getting the first stripe on the white belt was. What does having a black belt mean to you? And what does it mean to get it personally? And what do you think having a black belt in jiu-jitsu means in general?
Honestly, I think having a black belt means you're ready to start, like, you have all the tools and the techniques to start learning jiu-jitsu. Right? I think that's like, I remember hearing that, I totally didn't get it. I think that's right. Right? I think it's like just the beginning of like, okay, now you have everything where you can really start to explore the concepts, right? I think like, as a coach, I look at like, my job isn't to build everyone's games, it's to like lay a foundation and give like a framework of moves, right? And I don't even like think like, oh, I'm gonna teach all the moves, all the things. It's like, I'm gonna teach you moves, and the moves are really representative of concepts, right? And tools. And then my hope is that people will take those tools and the concepts and create their own stuff, create their own game, right? It's funny, I was supposed to get my black belt, and Rodrigo was calling me, like, where are you? We're all waiting for you. Why haven't you shown up? We have a class, and I didn't really know what he was talking about. I was like, oh, I'll be there, but I was really not planning on coming. I was doing something different. I was somewhere else training, right? I didn't know it was my day to get the black belt, and they had like a whole presentation, and I missed it, didn't show up. That was pretty crazy, right? There's a lot of things going on in my life. And then it was another year before I got it.
Oh wow.
Right, so I waited. I almost missed the second one because I got drunk.
Wow, going through it.
With a friend, right, who got his brown belt the day I got my black belt, and we almost didn't show up. So thank God I did. But, you know, at that point in my life, there was a lot of, I was definitely, hadn't learned the thing, don't compare yourself to other people. I hadn't learned that lesson yet. And I think there was a little animosity. I got my belt very quickly, right? I got my black belt in 5 or 6 years, right? There were people I was training with that weren't real happy people that were coaching me that weren't happy, right? So it was like a little rivalry within that, right? So that was like kind of marred it a little bit, right? And then it was like, I don't really want to think about it, right? I was just like, I don't really even care about it. I was like, I still do this in the room, right? I was very, I'm very hard on myself. I was always very fixated on, you're still not the best, right? I was definitely that person for a very long time, probably until a couple of years ago, where I really was like, oh, you got to settle down and like view yourself like where you really are, right? So, and then I was like thinking more about like the black belt. You think about the black belt of like, I thought like, oh, when I get the black belt, things will be different. Things were not different. They were just the same, right? All the problems I had, just like everything.
It's a good lesson,
It's like one of those things. It's like, you better be happy just like you are right now, or else nothing else is gonna help, right? And I've had those situations. Well, they come up often, right? And I have like good friends that are like, you're doing that fucking thing again, where you're like gonna be happy when something else is achieved, and that's fake, right? I do it to myself now. I'm like, you're doing that thing again, where you're like, I want this thing. My next goal is this thing. That's when I'm gonna be happy. And it's like, that's not true, right? I have friends that are very successful in business, very successful with money, right? All of those things. Just like, oh, if I get a little more, right? And then you see them still doing that shit, right? And it's like, they're no more happy when they get this much more money, this much more things. So it's like, I always try to remind myself of those things, right? It's like, I had that like, when I was building this school, it was a little hard. And like I said, I was teaching like in a basement. I had like a student that like offered me, they had like a home gym. Got to run my kids program out of that, right? Should have been very grateful. I was very grateful, but I was definitely like, can't wait till I have my own gym. Everything will be better when I have my own gym, right? I want my, this, and then it's like, got my own gym. You know what? Had a whole bunch of fucking problems. Because
different set of problems.
That's what always happens, right? You get one thing, you have more problems. Then fucking COVID, more problems, right? And it's like, just be happy with what you have, right? And trying to like, I definitely don't always succeed in it, but those are like the things that I kind of like, dude, I should be happy every day that I get to do jiu-jitsu, right? Get to come hang out, right? Who gets to like really do that as a job? Not a lot of people, but I'm like, oh, I'll be happier if I have this other more stuff. It's like, when I see people doing that, it's like, oh, you see the discontentment of people, and it's like, I always just try to move my mind back to like, dude, what's great right now, right? What's like awesome in your life right now, that like, you want those moments, like those moments. That's what I kind of look for now, is like, oh, I just want to be like content. I never really understood that as a word. Right? Seemed like a cop out. Like, oh, be content. It's like, oh, well, I'm not trying. I'm not trying more. I always had that frame on it, where it's like, now it's like, oh, I'm going to be happy with what I have, right? And then it's like, if you get more, that's good. If you get less, that's good too. Right?
That's a great lesson. It's a great lesson.
It's a hard one.
It is.
Right? It's a hard one. But
easier said than done.
that's what I try to remind myself. I think jiu-jitsu teaches you that a little bit, right? It's like, there's always someone that's going to beat you. And there's always someone probably you can beat. It's just like, just be stoked you can like roll around. That's why I like the guard passing. No one's winning or losing. We're just doing the fun middle part.
It was fun. No, I love you. Bring such a, you have an amazing gym here. So the fact that you built this, I did see it at the time on Instagram that you were building this up, and everyone was sharing, coming out and helping. So it is a beautiful gym, and I'm super happy for you that you have it, and that I'm able to have to come take a class in this great facility of yours. Lastly, what outside of jiu-jitsu, totally separate, do you do that's good for the soul?
Dude, I hang out with my dog. I've been doing dog training. That's another thing. It's basically training myself, right? Another thing that I really enjoy that I hope to get more into is bicycle riding.
Oh, cool.
Right? I have a life goal of, I want to ride from here to Mexico, and I also want to ride from here to East Coast. So I want to do like the touring bike rides. So that's like something I'm kind of trying to figure out how I'll be able to slot that in, right, with owning a gym.
Yep.
But yeah, dude, I think it's possible, and that's like another thing that I think like something I kind of like fell into as a way to like hopefully keep me in jiu-jitsu because it's good for my legs.
Cool.
Right? And I find it to be very soothing because it's just another like long grind, you know, bicycling, basically you just pedal.
Yep.
Right? You just fucking
It's
pedal.
simple, you just pedal.
It's super easy, right? You pedal, I have like all kinds of like hateful conversations with myself, right? In those moments, it's like, I enjoy kind of that torturous grind of things, right? I like that, so, you know, plus I like the view from a bicycle that you don't get from like a car, right? I love road tripping. I'm actually very excited about your road trip. I wish I went on more road trips, so I always am excited when I meet people doing that. And I love to travel, so I would like to do more traveling, but really, I think the thing that's been best for me is like fucking getting on a bicycle and pedaling.
Cool.
Right? I find it therapeutic.
No, that's great. Well, and on the training dog side, I have a great book that I'll share with you after this with training dogs that my brother is using for his dog currently.
Oh,
so
dude.
I'll share that with
For
you.
sure. Yeah. I have, you met my old dog. I used to live in the country, so she was kind of like got to have bad manners. And then when I built this gym, I was like, oh, I'm gonna start bringing my dog here. And then I moved to an apartment too, so it's like, oh,
It's a little different.
you gotta have good manners, right? We gotta be a good citizen and all of that. So I actually was able to, I panicked because she got like, she barks at people a little bit. She really barked at people with the mask, right? When I would bring her in and she, like parents with the mask staring at her,
Wow.
she wasn't really into it, right? And so it was like, okay, gotta get this. I had a panic attack. I was like, oh my God, she's barking. There's gonna be a jiu-jitsu Karen that's gonna like Yelp review my dog or something, right? I was like, can't have that happen. I have this gym and I can't have that happen. So I like enrolled, Maddie's 11, so she's old, right? She's not like a spring chicken. I enrolled her in dog classes, and so like for the last year, I've been taking all these dog classes.
That's so awesome.
Dude, it's been like really rad, and like a lot of the things that I learned in dog class, I'm like, oh, I use all those techniques in kids class, right? And like it's just about consistency. It's about really like knowing what you want, clear communication with the dog, right? Building trust. So yeah, I really enjoy that. I want to get like a little terrier and have him do those little agility things, and then I also want to get a Doberman.
Cool.
So those are, I need to become a much better dog trainer.
Cool.
And so I'll focus on that and bicycle riding.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
love that. Do you have anything else to share with me? Any stories that you have that you don't want to be forgotten? Any closing thoughts?
I don't think I have any special stories. I'm actually just really excited to hear about your story.
Oh, well,
right?
thank you.
I'm very excited. I always like seeing people like with little passion projects, especially ones that like I directly know about, right? And like I'm enthusiastic about. So, and dude, I've always wanted to go on a jiu-jitsu road trip. So I'm glad that you're doing it. And I also am very excited about van life.
Cool.
Right? I kind of would secretly like to be a van life person. So I'm gonna pick your brain of like
For sure.
how much you love it and all the pros and cons of van life.
I'm about to learn them all, so we'll stay in contact.
Have you started living in your van already?
Yeah, I am. Monday. I am 8 or 9 days in, fully living in it.
Dude, have you had like cops come and knock on your door yet?
Nope, not yet. Not yet.
Where are you parking it? Are these too many questions?
No, it's good. I'm living in a van. Yeah, that's part of this, so I can do this jiu-jitsu sabbatical journey. You know, I've read lots of blogs. Like when I closed the business down and decided to do this, I didn't know that van life was a thing. Like I was like, I'll get a van, build it out, like cool. But there's like, then I started looking, the hashtag van life. Oh my God, this is a thing. Like I didn't know 3 months ago that is a whole culture.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm just learning about it. And then I dove head first because I had to, because I was building it.
Yeah.
And then I started reading some blogs, you know, because it was this weird balance of trying to build it and get it done, and then also learn how to do it once you're done doing it, you know. So I've got some good advice, you know, hey, like certain parking lots, hey, the Home Depots or Walmarts and Planet Fitness parking lots, but then also like, hey, normal city streets when they're flat, like no issues, you know, you put your that covers up and everything, and so far it's been okay. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. I trained with Officer Craig over at Bellevue PD. Great guy. He's super awesome. But one thing about me, I'm a night owl. And so I like driving at night because there's no traffic, right? The roads are clear, and it's just like, cool, I get to put on my podcast and music, whatever. So I had left Arlington where I was staying, finishing up the van, and I was like, well, I'm gonna go down there tonight, the night before I train with him, because we got to be up super early. So I stayed in the Home Depot parking lot in Bellevue, no issues, put the covers up, and I was living the van life. I went and trained, and then so I'm learning it as I go. There's definitely little things that I'm every day figuring out, but it's part of the process. So I'll definitely keep you updated.
That's exciting. I'm jealous. I think it's great. It's cool. All the like technologies too, like all the solar they have in the vans. Like,
I'm lucky that it was invented before I got to it, so I could partake in it for sure. So it's been fun, but I'll totally keep you updated.
So how long will your trip be?
Minimum 9 months.
Okay.
Because I have a hunt in Montana planned for September with one of my good friends, Rob Larson.
Okay.
So that's kind of let me see what all I can do, and then after that decide where I'm going to move to or continue van life and keep traveling and training. So I don't know. That's the excitement. I've been in Seattle my whole life, and I'm ready for this new adventure. So it's going to be wild.
This is the first time you've really kind of moved outside of Seattle?
Yeah. I've traveled a lot. I used to go to LA all the time. I've traveled internationally a bunch, but first time living outside of Seattle. Seattle's not going to be home for anymore. Yeah, so this is interesting. I'm nervous but excited, for sure.
Dude, what a great adventure. And I'm proud of you for taking that step, and I can't wait to see where you're going to go.
I appreciate it. And I'm super grateful for your time, because I know we've been here talking for an hour and a half now, and I value your time, and I really appreciate it, because Ivan was like, dude, you have to go talk to Cindy. I was like, if she'll let me sit down with her, I love jiu-jitsu, so I really appreciate it. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, I appreciate you, and have a wonderful adventure.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Dude, Brad, this is exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your time.
Of course.
And it's cool, you seem excited for me, which I didn't expect people, because legitimately I was like, I'm moving a van, go travel, figure out where new home is going to be. And everyone's like, that's rad, go do that. And I was like, wait, people are okay with that? Because I ran a construction company. I was very 9 to 5 and stable and and then it's like, cool, I'm going to stop that and go live in a van.
What was the impetus for doing all that?
So for a couple of years, I kind of knew. I was like, I don't want to be doing this the rest of my life. I don't know what it is, but I just want to do something epic.
Yeah.
And I just gotta go. And what may not have been necessarily leave Seattle, but I just had to do something,
Yeah, something different.
Yeah, and so, honestly, I was considering Army Special Forces or policing, which I may still get to those things maybe, but then there's also a part of me, because I got out of a relationship, I was running the company, it's like, okay, this isn't it, I need to close it down. If I don't leave Seattle now, I'm never going to. And I need to leave home to see what being away from home is like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that was a big thing for me, because the next thing, I'm very entrepreneurial. I would have started a new business and done something and figured something out, but it would have still been in Seattle. You know what I mean? So I was just ready for a new adventure.
Dude, well, a lot of people I don't think are willing, don't feel like they can just be I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Right? People second guess those things. So, dude,
it's crazy.
I'm super proud of you for doing it.
Thank you so much. My brother totally pushed me to do the recording stuff, because Vic, because I never think I'm not ignorant enough, arrogant enough to think I'm someone, right? I'm not. I'm 29 years old, yet but he would remind me, dude, you didn't go to college, you grew a construction company, do all these things. I was like, but to me it just seems like I'm living my life. I'm not, I don't ever take, I don't take my own success very well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And because it's been hard and struggle, I've struggled and gone through all these things as well. But he's like, dude, you're doing something people dream of. Put it out there so you can potentially inspire or excite other people to try something too. And I was like, okay, because my biggest fear is being that guy.
Yeah.
I never want to be that person. It's then I'll just be authentically me, take it or leave it. Okay. And so he pushed me to do it.
Dude, I'm glad he did. I think that's great. And it's there will be people that it resonates with, and people will follow it, and then you're going to be able to meet more people. And even if no one follows it, you'll have it for you as the document that because I don't think a lot of people are able to, whether it's able because they decide not, they choose not to, just get up and do those things, right?
For sure.
I mean, that was when I was I'm quitting and being a jiu-jitsu world champion, everyone's like, what?
Yep.
Right? And it's like,
Same thing,
people
yeah.
can, I have people tell me like, I wish I would do this or that. It's like, you can do it.
You can. If you decide to do it, you can do it.
Yeah, it's gonna be fucking crazy and hard, and people are gonna tell you you're crazy, but you can do it, right? There's all kinds of things you can do. I love it when people actually do it. So
it's funny because Sean Plaster, he's like one of my best friends nowadays. We met in jiu-jitsu and then became friends, and then found out like, oh, he does business. That's where he helped mentor me, and then became good friends. Like I love him to death. And he was like, hey, because I also again wasn't sure. I came to him with the idea because I kind of fleshed out with my brother. I was like, hey, what do you think about this? I don't want to be that guy. Is that corny? Trying to put this content out there, like. I don't ever want to be like an influencer, like that's weird, I don't know, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, like one, for sure do it, but two, like if no one watched it, do it for your kids one day. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, like think about if you have a family, like your kids could look back when you're 29, 30 years old and you did this thing, they could see what you were like at that age. I was like, damn, okay, that's a cool perspective because I'm not doing it for other people in a sense. It's like, it's for me, it's fulfilling it, you know, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, and it's like, I mean, just documenting it all, seeing where you're at, it'll be something really cool for you to look back on, right? And I think it's a neat way for people to be able to engage with you in what you're doing, right? If you just went and drove around and didn't tell anyone, then like how are all your friends going to share in it, right? And how are you? It's that kind of the caveat for you to like reach all these people, right?
Exactly.
It's like not being that guy. It's just like, oh, I put myself out there. And then the people are gonna find you, and like a lot of people say they want to do it, and a lot of people watch it. Very few people actually go and do it, right? So that's like.
It is cool. I mean, I've gotten amazing responses, like in the jiu-jitsu, and I feel lucky enough that, again, I'm just a little pawn in this the whole game of life, jiu-jitsu culture, whatever, because I'm lucky enough that timing in life to me is everything. Because 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, like Kriyanchi was still heavy hitting. Like me cross training may not have been cool. You know, so it's like, but now the culture's a little different because of the internet. Everyone's like, no, like come train. So it's like the culture's cool enough to where I can do it now. You know what I mean?
Everyone's open.
Exactly. And then I've gotten great responses, and Craig and Nate Orchard and all these guys and Greg Anderson, they were telling me like, oh, go check out this place, talk to them, and it's like the connections in jiu-jitsu. People are just cool as shit. Like overall, everyone's been so cool. So I'm really excited.
I have one guy, he's in Canada, but he told me he's coming down here and he's gonna be in Las Vegas. I think you would like him. He's not like a big name guy at all. I met him in Nicaragua.
Sick.
So he's a Canadian dude. He goes by JiuJitsu, right? He has a big beard. He's like a biker dude. He was like in Bulgaria with like the fucking Mongols.
Holy shit.
Yeah, he's like no fucking joke. He's a Drysdale black belt.
Damn, that's legit.
His dad was a Canadian wrestler, so he's a high level wrestler. I would train in Nicaragua with some friends, and I met him down there, and then we've stayed in touch. Dude, he's got a fucking great game. He's a like good personality, right? I think he's gonna be down at Drysdale's with his girlfriend. She's getting ready for the trials.
Sick.
So I'm gonna find him. I'll put you in touch with him, and maybe you can run paths with him.
Yeah, please. I love this shit.
He's like another like. When I met him, I was like, oh, he's like a fucking. Well, he's a big fucking guy, like jiu-jitsu, right? But he's like super helpful, like all jiu-jitsu guys, right?
Yep.
Super helpful. I think you would like him. I was already thinking like, oh, who are other people like? I'll try and think of all the cool.
Please,
and be like, go here. I'll refer you over here.
Hell yeah! I'll give my number, and then you have Instagram. We can stay in contact there as well. That'd be awesome.
Sure. Yeah.
And then I'm gonna. Can you get Amazon packages here?
Cool.
I'm gonna order you that book. You'll dig it. You'll dig it.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Dude, dog training's such a. You can get them doing all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's like.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah.
People were trying to get me to get a dog for this trip, and I was like, damn, man's best friend. That could be cool. I'll probably find myself lonely. And then I was like, wait a minute. I can't train a new dog in a van. Well, I could if I wanted to, but the things I want to do and pursue, all the things good for the soul, are not conducive to having a dog. Like being in jiu-jitsu room, I want to go skydiving more. I want to do more surfing and all these things. Like that's anti-dog. Like I'm not at the point where I can have a dog.
Yeah, or like you need the dog all dialed in where it can like accompany you. It's like
It's
Yeah,
not there
you
yet.
need to get it like 2 or 3 years ago.
Exactly. That would have been like, hey bud, we're going on this trip, not
Yeah.
a start with a puppy, because then it just ruins the brand new band I built. Like hell no,
Yeah.
not yet. I put a lot of work into that thing.
Yeah, you'll meet some cool dogs along the way.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Dude.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I truly
course.
appreciate it. It means a lot to
So it's
me.
great to meet you officially.
Yeah.
And
Guys, if you've made it this far along, finished the interview, I just want to thank you again for supporting me along this journey, and hopefully you got something awesome out of that interview. I really enjoy doing these, learning so much about life, jiu-jitsu, and everyone has such a unique and interesting perspective. So I hope you got something out of that that you can take with you. And one last reminder, for 10% off on any Jocko Fuel products or Origin USA products, go to jockofuel.com or originusa.com. Support yourself by getting some awesome products, supplements, protein shakes, greens, all that good stuff. It helps support me along this journey, and again, supports yourself and an American-made company. So yeah, jockofuel.com. Check it out, guys. Thank you very much.